I stood near the arrivals board at Pearson Terminal 1, my wool coat folded over one arm, the cedar box tucked tight against my ribs, when the message came through. 7 words. Flat. Final. Please don't come to the house tonight. No hello. No, sweetheart. Not even Mum. Just that, glowing up at me from the screen like a door being closed from the inside. The intercom chimed somewhere overhead, announcing a flight from Halifax. A young woman near the Tim Hortons kiosk was trying to wrangle a stroller and a double-double at the same time. An older man in a Leafs cap was hugging someone I guessed was his brother, both of them laughing too loud the way men do when they haven't seen each other in years. Everything around me kept moving. I did not. I read the words again. Then, a third time, I watched the small gray dot that meant she might be typing something more, anything more, an apology, a reason, even a lie I could pretend to believe. The dot never came. I slid the phone back into my purse and stood very still for a long moment, because if I moved too quickly, I thought I might break something that could not be glued back together. My daughter had asked me to fly across the country for her engagement dinner. I had come, and now, somehow, I was not welcome at it. I did not cry. I wanted to. My throat went tight the way it does when you swallow ice water too fast, and my eyes stung, but I didn't let the tears go. Instead, I sat down on one of those cold metal benches by the luggage carousel, smoothed my skirt over my knees, and did what my mother always told me to do when the world tilts sideways. I took stock. I had paid for this ticket myself. Nobody asked me to. When my daughter called me back in February, breathless with her news, I offered right away. Air Canada, economy, from Thunder Bay to Toronto with a layover in Winnipeg because the direct flights were out of my pension's reach. I had bought a new dress at the Hudson's Bay back home, nothing flashy, a soft gray with 3/4 sleeves and a pearl at the collar. I had the hem taken in at the little tailor shop beside the Shoppers Drug Mart on Algoma Street because I had lost some weight over the winter and wanted to look my best. I had packed the cedar box, the one that held my own mother's brooch, the one she wore when she married my father in a church basement in Sudbury in 1953. I had cleaned it, wrapped it in tissue, tied it with a green satin ribbon that matched the color of my daughter's eyes. There was also the card, $500 tucked inside, more than I could really afford, with a note in my careful handwriting wishing her and her fiancé a long life of soft mornings and full kitchens. All of it sat beside me now in a tartan suitcase with a wheel that squeaked, like some pathetic museum display of a mother who hadn't gotten the memo. My daughter knew I was coming. She knew the flight number. She knew the hotel I had booked on Dundas Street, because it was close to their condo and within walking distance of a diner that did proper eggs. She knew I was bringing my mother's brooch, because I had told her on the phone, and she had said, "Mum, that's so thoughtful. She's going to love it," in a voice that I wanted to believe was warm. She had waited until I landed, until my bag came around the carousel, until I was already in the city. And then she had sent me 7 words and turned off the lights. I stood up slowly. I pulled the handle of my suitcase and listened to that familiar squeak. And I thought, well, at least one thing in my life is still honest about where it hurts. I walked toward the taxi stand because I did not trust myself to figure out the UP Express just then. The driver was a kind man from somewhere in East Africa, based on the music playing softly through his speakers. And when he asked what brought me to Toronto, I said, I thought it was a family thing. Turns out it's not. He didn't press. He just nodded in the rearview mirror and said, "Sometimes the city is easier when you don't have to be anywhere special." I wanted to thank him for that sentence. I wanted to tell him it was the kindest thing anyone had said to me in a year. Instead, I looked out the window and watched the Gardiner roll past, the lake gray and flat to the south, the CN Tower poking up through a low ceiling of April cloud. At the hotel, I checked in under my own name. I tipped the bellhop $5, which I never do. because he had kind eyes, and because I wanted to give something to somebody that evening. My room looked out over a parking garage and the back of a Rexall. I stood at the window for longer than I should have, still in my coat, still holding the cedar box, because setting it down felt like admitting the evening was really going to end this way. Eventually, I set it down. I hung the gray dress in the closet. I put the card in the bedside drawer so I would not have to look at it. I ran the kettle on the little coffee station and made myself a mug of tea that tasted the way hotel tea always tastes, faintly of dust and somebody else's calcium. I sat in the wingback chair by the window with my shoes still on, because taking them off felt like giving up, and I thought about my daughter. Her name is Rebecca. I have called her Becca since the day she was born in a blizzard at the Thunder Bay Regional in 1988, when the nurse said she had a strong cry, and my husband Don squeezed my hand hard enough to bruise. Don passed 9 years ago in the spring, from a heart that simply gave out on him while he was clearing snow off the back deck. Becca flew home for the funeral. She stood beside me at the graveside in Riverview Cemetery, and afterwards she helped me wash the casseroles that the church ladies dropped off. She stayed 4 days. Then she flew back to Toronto, where her career was and where, she told me on the porch before her cab came, her real life had been waiting for her for some time now. I told myself it was grief. I told myself she needed space. I told myself that when I had been her age, I had also wanted my own life, away from my mother's kitchen and my mother's opinions. So I gave her space. I gave her so much space that the years filled with it. And I did not notice, at first, how the space had become the whole shape of the thing between us. I thought about the money, too. I did not mean to, but when you sit alone in a strange room with bad tea, your mind goes where it wants. Don had left me the house and a modest RRSP and his CPP survivor benefits, and my own pension from the school board where I taught grade 3 for 31 years, and together it was enough. Not rich, enough. And for the last 8 years, quietly, steadily, I had been sending some of it to Becca, not all at once. $1,000 here when she said she was between contracts, $1,500 when she and her fiancé, a man named Marcus, had moved into the new condo, and the closing costs were more than they had planned. $300 a month, every month. For the last 4 years, transferred on the first, for what she had once called, in an embarrassed voice, just the little things, Mum, groceries mostly. I had kept a folder, not because I was planning to hold it over her. I kept a folder because I was a teacher for 31 years, and teachers keep folders. It was just what I did. I thought about Marcus, too. I had met him exactly twice, once at a dinner on Queen Street 2 Christmases ago, where he had ordered for both of them without asking and had spent the whole meal on his phone. And once last summer, when they had driven up to the cottage on Lake Superior for one night, only one, and he had spent most of it on a call to somebody in Calgary about an investment. He was polite. He was pleasant, in the way that a brochure is pleasant, but I had never heard him ask my daughter a single question about her day. I thought about all of this, and I thought, somewhere around 9 o'clock, that maybe the text message was not the surprise. Maybe it was just the moment the slow thing finally showed its face. I was still in the chair when my phone buzzed. I almost didn't look. I thought it might be her, with some soft explanation I would want to accept. It was not. It was my granddaughter. My granddaughter's name is Hannah. She is 19, in her second year at McMaster studying environmental science, and she is Becca's daughter from her first marriage, which ended in 2009 inches away. That was not anybody's fault exactly, but was, in the end, everybody's relief. Hannah's father, Tom, is a good man, a welder in Sault Ste. Marie, and he has always let Hannah come up to see me in Thunder Bay for 2 weeks every summer. When Becca and Marcus got together 5 years ago, Hannah was told, gently but clearly, that she was welcome in their condo, but that she should not bring up her father when Marcus was home. Hannah, who is smarter than any of us deserve, simply stopped coming. Her text said, "Grandma, are you in Toronto yet?" Mum just told me you weren't coming to the dinner. That is not what she told me last week. What is going on?" I read it twice. Then I wrote back, "I'm here. I'm at the hotel." She sent me a message asking me not to come. I watched the little dots start and stop and start again. Then the phone rang. "Grandma," she said, and her voice was the voice I remembered from when she was 6 and had fallen off her bike on the gravel driveway at the cottage. Tight, angry, trying not to cry. What did he do? "I don't know that he did anything, sweetheart. He did something. She wouldn't do this on her own." I wanted to correct her, because a mother is supposed to defend her child, even when that child is the one who has just bruised her. But I couldn't. I sat there with the phone pressed to my ear, and I thought about the last 4 years of $300 transfers, and I thought about the way my daughter had started calling me only on Sundays, at exactly 2 in the afternoon, the way you schedule a dentist, and I thought about how she had asked me, back in February, on that bright, excited phone call, to please not mention at the dinner that I was helping her with rent. "Grandma," Hannah said, "are you still there?" "I'm still here. Can I come over tonight? To the hotel? I'll take the GO train. I'll be there in an hour." I almost said no. I almost said I was tired, that she had classes in the morning, that it was too much trouble. And then I heard Don's voice, very clearly, the way I sometimes still do when I am about to make a decision I will regret, and he said, "Betty, let the girl come." "Yes," I said, "please come." She arrived at 10:30, still in her university hoodie, her hair pulled back in the careless bun of a young woman who has not had time to think about herself in several weeks. She hugged me for a long time in the hotel doorway. She smelled like cold air and highlighter ink. Then she sat down on the end of the bed, and she told me the thing I had not known. "Marcus has been telling her," Hannah said, staring at her hands, "that you are a drain on her, that you are using her, that you can't manage your own money, and that every time you come around he has to watch you to make sure you don't ask for something. He's been saying it for over a year." I set my tea down on the nightstand. I did not trust my hands. "Becca told you this?" "Becca told me this 6 weeks ago when she was crying in my kitchen in Hamilton," Hannah said. "She said she didn't believe him. She said she knew it wasn't true. And then last week she told me the wedding was going to be small, family only, and that she needed to protect everybody's peace. I asked her who she meant. She said I would understand when I was older. I laughed then. Not a happy laugh. The kind of laugh that comes out when the thing you have been suspecting for a long time finally sits down across the table from you and takes off its coat. "Well," I said, "I understand already, and I am already older." Hannah stayed in my hotel room that night. She slept on top of the covers in her hoodie because she hadn't brought anything with her, and in the morning I walked her down to the diner on Dundas and bought her eggs over easy and a coffee that was almost as good as the ones I make at home. We did not talk about her mother. We talked about her coursework. She was doing a thesis on the recovery of wetlands in Rondo Provincial Park, and her eyes got bright when she described the birds she was seeing there. I watched her across the booth, this young woman with my husband's jawline and my own mother's stubborn chin, and I thought, this is what a child looks like when somebody has actually listened to her. After she left for the train, I went back to the hotel room, and I did 3 things, in order. The first thing I did was call my lawyer. His name is Gordon. He has been my lawyer since Don died, and his office is on Red River Road in Thunder Bay above a shoe repair shop. He picked up on the second ring. I told him what had happened. I told him what Hannah had told me. He was quiet for a moment, the way Gordon always is, and then he said, "Betty, when do you want to come in?" "I don't want to come in," I said. "I want to do it today. Can you send me the papers by email? I will sign them at a notary here in Toronto and courier them back to you this afternoon. You want to change the will. I want to change the will. And the beneficiary on the RRSP. And the beneficiary on the RRSP. And the TFSA. And anything else Becca's name is on." He asked me who I was putting in her place. I said Hannah. He asked me if I was sure. I said I had never been more sure of anything in my life, which wasn't quite true, because I had been that sure the day I married Don, and I had been that sure the day I held Becca for the first time. But it was the most sure I had been in a very long time. The second thing I did was call my bank, not the app, not the website. I called the branch on Bay Street that I had once opened an account with, years ago, when Becca had needed a co-signer for her first apartment in the city, and we had done it together in person. A young man named Dev answered, and I asked him to cancel the recurring $300 transfer that went out on the first of every month to Rebecca Holloway. He asked me if I wanted to mark it as a fraud issue or as a personal change. I thought about that for a moment. "Call it a boundary," I said. He laughed softly and told me he would put it down as customer request. He said the transfer for May 1st had not yet processed, so it would simply stop, just like that. 4 years of $300 every month, stopping like a tap being turned. The third thing I did was take the gray dress out of the closet and put it back on. I did my hair in the bathroom mirror, the way my mother taught me, with 2 bobby pins behind each ear. I put on my lipstick. I pinned my own mother's brooch, the one from the cedar box, to the collar of the gray dress, because I had brought it all the way across the country and it was going to be worn today, even if the person I had brought it for was not going to see it. Then I walked down Dundas Street to a little Italian restaurant I had read about in the Globe and Mail's travel section years ago, and I had lunch alone. I ordered the Osso Bucco. I ordered a glass of Niagara Cabernet Franc. I ordered a tiramisu afterwards, even though I never eat dessert. The young waiter asked me if I was celebrating something. "I think I might be," I said. "I'm not entirely sure yet." He refilled my water and smiled at me in a way that suggested he understood more than he was saying. When the bill came, I tipped him 25%, which I also never do, and I walked back to the hotel along Queen Street in the weak April sun, feeling something I had not felt in a long time, which was the peculiar lightness of a load you did not know you had been carrying until you set it down. Becca called me at 4 that afternoon. I let it ring. She called again at 5. I let it ring again. At 6, she sent a text that said, "Mum, please, can we talk?" I sat with the phone in my hand for a long time, watching the April light turn gold across the parking garage, and then I wrote back, carefully, "Yes. Tomorrow, 10 in the morning, the hotel lobby. Just you, not him." I did not say his name. I did not need to. She came. She was wearing a coat I had never seen before, one of those long camel ones that cost more than my monthly pension, and her hair was done the way women do their hair when they are trying very hard not to cry. She sat down across from me in one of those low lobby armchairs, and for the first time in I don't know how long, she looked at my face, really looked, not the quick scan she had been doing for years, an actual look. "Mum," she said. "Rebecca." She flinched at her full name. She has not been Rebecca to me since she was in preschool. I didn't want it to be like this. "Then why is it, sweetheart?" She opened her mouth. She closed it. She looked at her hands, which were twisting the strap of a handbag I had probably paid for a few months of rent toward. He said, She began, and then she stopped. She started over. "I said some things about you, to him, over the years. When I was stressed, when I was tired, I said some things I didn't mean, and he took them, and he built something out of them, and now I don't know how to take them back." I let the silence sit between us. I have been a grade 3 teacher for 31 years. I know what silence can do that words cannot. "He told me," she said, "that you were the reason I couldn't get ahead, that every time I was about to make progress, you would pull me back down. He told me the money you sent was a leash. He told me the visits were performances. He told me," and here her voice broke a little, "that if I really wanted to build a life with him, I had to let you go. Quietly, without a scene. He said you would understand, that you would prefer a clean break." Did you believe him? She didn't answer for a long moment. I wanted to. "That's not the same thing." "No," she said. "It isn't." I looked at her. My daughter, The blizzard baby. The girl who had memorized all of the hockey sweater in French by the time she was 7 and recited it for her grandfather at the cottage, standing on a kitchen chair, her hands clasped in front of her like a little opera singer. The girl whose wedding I had imagined, in my kinder moments, as something full of birch branches and lilacs and a speech from her father that he would never now get to give. "Becca," I said, "I am going to tell you 3 things, and then I am going to go home. You do not have to respond to any of them. You do not have to agree. You only have to hear." She nodded. She was crying quietly, the way women of our family cry, without any sound. "The first thing," I said, "is that I am no longer sending you money. Not this month. Not any month after. Not because I am punishing you. Because for 4 years I have been paying to be ignored, and a woman my age does not have time to keep buying what should be given for free." She nodded. "The second thing is that I have changed my will. Everything I have, when I am gone, will go to Hannah, not because I love her more. Because she is the one who called me last night when she heard I was alone in a hotel. Love is not a feeling in our family. It is a series of phone calls, and for a long time now, Hannah has been the one making them." She closed her eyes. "The third thing," I said, and here I reached into my purse and pulled out the small cedar box, and I set it on the little table between us. "The third thing is this, your grandmother's brooch. I brought it for you. I was going to pin it on your dress at the rehearsal dinner. I am not going to give it to you today because I do not think you are ready to wear it, but I am not going to take it home either. I am going to give it to Hannah, to hold for you until such a day as you come and ask her for it yourself. Not through him, not with his voice in the next room. You, asking her. And on that day, whenever it comes, she will give it to you, because that is the kind of young woman she is. But the asking will have to be yours." She stared at the box. She did not reach for it. She understood. "Mum," she whispered, "I don't know how to do that yet." "I know you don't, sweetheart," I said. "That is why I am not asking you to do it today. I am only asking you to know that the door is there, and that it is not locked, and that it is not going to be locked no matter how long you take. But I am not going to stand at it and knock anymore. I have been knocking for 9 years. It is your turn to walk." She started to cry properly then. I did not reach across and hold her. A mother knows when her comfort would be an interruption. I just sat there, and I let her have the cry, and when she was finished, she wiped her face with the back of her hand, the way she used to when she was 4 years old on the porch in Thunder Bay. "I'm sorry, Mum," she said. "I know you are. That isn't enough yet, but it's a start." We stood up. She hugged me, briefly, and I let her. Then she left, through the revolving door, out into the gray Toronto morning, and I watched her go and I thought, this is not the ending I planned, but it might be the one we needed. I flew home the next afternoon. I gave the cedar box to Hannah at Union Station before I got on the UP Express, and I told her the rule, and she cried, and she said she would keep it safe, and I believed her. The flight back to Thunder Bay was smooth. I looked down at the boreal forest unrolling below me, all those lakes like pieces of broken mirror scattered across the green, and I thought about my mother, and her mother before her, and all the women in my line who had done hard things quietly and without applause. When I got home, the house was cold the way houses get when you leave them for a few days in the shoulder season. I turned up the thermostat. I made myself a proper cup of tea, red rose, the way Don used to drink it, with milk and 1 sugar. I sat at the kitchen table with the folder marked Becca, the one with 8 years of transfers in it, and I did not shred it. I thought about it. I considered it. And then I decided I wanted to keep it, not as a grudge, but as a record. A record of what love had looked like for me during those years. Imperfect, generous, sometimes unwise. But mine. I put the folder in the bottom drawer of Don's old desk. I turned out the kitchen light. I stood for a moment at the back window and looked out at the yard where the last of the dirty snow was finally going, where the crocuses would be up in another week. I was 68 years old. My husband was gone. My daughter was somewhere I could not reach her yet. My granddaughter was in a university residence 4 provinces away, studying the birds in a wetland neither of us had ever seen. And I was, for the first time in a long time, entirely awake in my own life, not waiting for the phone to ring, not wondering what I had done wrong, not counting. If you are listening to this, and you have ever paid your own way to a place you were not really wanted, ever carried a family heirloom across a country for a person who did not open the door, ever sent money on the 1st of the month to somebody who could not be bothered to text you back on the 2nd, I want you to hear me very clearly. You are not selfish for stopping. You are not cruel for closing the folder. You are not unloving for choosing, at last, to love yourself with some of the same stubborn loyalty you have been spending on other people for years. The door stays open. You simply stop standing in it. And if they ever do walk through, you will be further inside the house than you used to be, where the tea is warm and the light is good, and the woman sitting at the table is someone you finally, after all these years, recognize. That woman is you. She was always going to be you. It only took a plane ticket and 7 cold words to remind you she had been waiting this whole time.